Now, people will often say to me, as soon as the death card comes up, they'll nod very sagely and say, well, it doesn't really mean death. Well, it's not the only thing it can mean, but it can mean death. People die. So death is part of life, as contradictory as that sounds. That said, one negative card does not a tragedy make. And here's the thing, when you're reading, you have to keep in mind scale. Generally speaking, if there's some huge tragedy that may be coming up, what you look for is three things. You put it within the context of the scope of the reading. If you're asking how your day's going, well, if you're going to have just a pisser of a day where everything that can go wrong will go wrong, the cards will all be black. But you're going to forget about that in a year. It doesn't mean much. But in the context of what you asked, how your day's going to go, well, it could be miserable, right? However, if you get those same cards in the context of the next year, or the next 5 years, when you're asking about a much broader future, those cards will have much more weight because they're significant over a larger period of time. So that's one thing to keep in mind, the time frame. The second thing to keep in mind is what I call clusters. One negative card usually doesn't mean something really god-awful unless there are other negative cards around it. So, the death card is not likely to mean death if you've got all these other wonderful positive cards around it. It could mean trouble walking. It could mean a visit to the dentist. Lots of other smaller things. However, if the death card shows up with, say, the Three of Swords, the Tower, the Ten of Swords, then it is potentially much, much more serious. So again, you've got to consider, is that negative card within the context of a cluster? The other thing that can sometimes happen is if an event is very significant and life-changing, and this, again, like I'm discussing all the dark cards, you can apply all this to the good cards too, but sticking with the negative ones, because that's what people tend to be more afraid of, what you have to watch for is that if something negative is likely to happen and you're doing something like a horoscope spread, so that's a larger overview of your life, what is likely to happen is you will get negative cards showing up in all the different areas of the person's life. Now, sometimes that can mean a lot of things are going to go wrong in various areas, but sometimes what it can mean is one huge event can have a domino effect on the person's life, and the cards want you to understand that there's a big event coming up, so it'll just keep cropping up. So ask the cards what this is about. All right? So again, before you have a massive panic attack because you got the death card, just consider those factors.